Hello, this is Linda Vettrus-Nichols, and I have with me the most amazing person, Tania Gerard, Congruency Coach, Tania Gerard. Welcome, Tania.
Hi, Linda. Thank you so much for inviting me.
You're so welcome. I'm honored to have you. All right, so we are talking about procrastination is not a problem. And first of all, I'm like, what? I'm going to let you introduce yourself because that might actually be in your story.
Yeah, it's not a problem. Don't worry.
Happy. So how did you come to that place?
Okay. I am a congruency coach. And what I do is that I help my clients to create sustainable well-being by making confident decisions, by learning what does that well-being looks to them, and setting their boundaries and defending them, connecting with themselves, communicating with others. So the idea is to bring eyes instead of living towards outside, instead of always making decisions and processing information by asking ourselves, how does this look like to the outside? What does the outside look tells me? You bring your gaze towards yourself, connect with yourself, understand what's going on there, and then work from there. Create. That's why I call it create well-being. Okay. So, in my experience, procrastination is not a problem by itself, but it's more a symptom of what is going on inside.
Nice. So what is your story of transformation where you kind of got to this place of realization on that?
Well, I think of myself as a time traveler because I was born in the 18th century, not literally.
But it felt like that. Because you're from Mexico, right?
Yes, I was born in Mexico. I come from a multicultural family. So kind of Mexico was, I guess, just destiny. But the thing is that I grew up in a very, very traditional family, surrounded by a very traditional context in which gender roles are really strong, in which you are allowed or not allowed to do things because you're a woman or you're a man. Got it. So I feel that I didn't know I could make choices about my life because nobody really taught me to or told me that it was possible.
Right.
So I don't know, I do believe we all have wisdom inside and we all have a path. And when we're connected with ourselves, we kind of discover it. It's circumstantial, sometimes accidental, but that's how I started reading, meeting people, connecting with people, having conversations. And that ultimately led me to many years of traveling. I lived in Spain for a long while, and now I live in the United States. So choices to me are pretty much what life sums up to. Like our life is the sum of the choices we make.
All right.
That's why I feel it's so important to know that you get to decide. You get to decide what you do with your life, regardless of the circumstances, because sometimes these circumstances are outside of your control. You don't really, you don't choose to make it rain, or you don't choose to have a company having trouble and letting you off. That's something we don't choose, but we do get to decide how we want to experience those events and what we want to learn from those experiences in a way that helps us to connect with who we truly are, and that creates that joy, that hope, that inspiration that really makes our life worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. All right, so let's get into it.
Yes.
What your heart is telling you. And I know you're a Women Who Run with the Wolves fan by Clarissa Pinkola Estes, and that's all about getting down into that deep intuition of the soul, right? And you have some really interesting things to say about the heart. So do what your heart is telling you. Tell us a little bit about that kind of title first.
Yes, well, we're talking about procrastination. So what I've learned is that we don't usually procrastinate things that brings us value, that makes us feel well. We usually procrastinate what we think we have to do, but somehow conflicts with our needs.
Right?
So the first thing is, if you find yourself procrastinating, if dishes have been there for 2 days, then probably a good idea is to connect with yourself in order to understand what's going on there.
Right.
Our needs are pretty much like toddlers. If you have been around a toddler or even a puppy or a kitten, like young creatures who do not know exactly how to communicate, they will start by tugging your leg like, mommy. And they don't necessarily have the words to articulate what they need, but they need your attention and they need you to understand them. So if you have ever tried to ignore a toddler, you might know that after a while, they just start screaming. And they will do anything they have to do and anything they know how to do to get your attention and gets their needs met. And that's what happened with ourselves. All our behaviors are there to get access to something or to evade from something. Like, that's basic ABA therapy theory, right? Like, our behaviors always have a purpose, and this purpose is about getting something or not getting something, getting away from something else. So procrastination can be any of both, not necessarily not doing that, but it is about, this is not what feels right now. Mm-hmm. So what I mean when I say listen to your heart is that when we learn how to connect with our needs in a way that is loving, that is compassionate, that is respectful, because our needs have no judgment. They are not black, white, right, wrong. They're just needs. They exist. And there's even nonviolent communication that talks about feelings and emotions as comfortable or uncomfortable, but not negative or positive. Because that would be judging yourself. That would be scolding yourself like, oh, you're needing this, but you're wrong for needing it, right? So we connect with ourselves. We listen to this need before it turns to a gremlin, ideally.
Yeah, right.
And what I mean with the next, because it's listen to your heart honestly. Mm-hmm. Honestly. What does honestly mean in this context? You need to be honest with yourself in a way that you can see yourself as you are. Not what you think you are, not what you wish you are, not who you believe or who people believe you should be. Just, this is who I am right now. I am not willing to do the dishes. Why? Because I need to recover from, or I need to rest, because, when you connect, then you can start articulating what's going on and you can figure out the best way to address this need. How do we address needs? In my experience and what I do with my clients is that I help them to build this kind of dictionary or glossary for their feelings, because our feelings reveal a specific need on the back. But it's a lot of observing ourselves with love, with patience. It's pretty much like dating. When you find somebody that you really like and you make time to, to spend time with that person, to share experiences, and you start learning them. You start learning what their expressions mean. Or when they say yes, but with certain tone, you know exactly what they're meaning, and they're not meaning yes.
Oh, yeah.
So that's
got one place on that one. Terry and I, we came together, and in 2.5 weeks we were married.
Wow.
We didn't know each other's triggers at all. And what a year after all that, I walked past his place where he was officing in where we were living, and he said something, and I said, knock off that husband shit. And he goes, knock off that wife shit. And I went, oh yeah, what is that? That's disrespect, right?
Right.
I said, well, let's not be husband and wife then. Let's just be lovers.
I love that.
Yeah, we both come out of 33-year starter marriages. So it's like, no, we're not going through this again, right? I love it. All right.
I love it.
So,
Yeah, because that communication exists outside of a grid, outside of a box. Like when and that's honestly too, because when you put a relationship in a box that constrains its possibilities,
yeah,
and that dictates its rules,
mm-hmm.
then you're not really in a meaningful relationship. You are playing a role and reading a script
and locked in a pattern.
Exactly. And that happens within ourselves too, because we have created this story of who we are. And sometimes it's hard to just let it go. I had a client once who was, procrastination, like to the ultimate level. He had been procrastinating for a year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah, he had this huge project going on. And, it had to be completed, delivered, and maybe in his timeline, he had to be somewhere else by that point. And when we started working, it was a very interesting process to watch, because he discovered that he really didn't want to do that project. His heart, his true self, his true interest was not somewhere else, but had a different form.
Yeah.
So he made decisions upon it. He found the easiest, fastest way to complete that task, because he had, business commitments about that. And this involved outsourcing. This involved asking for help. This involved pretty much assuming the responsibility of getting it done, not necessarily doing it.
Nice.
And then he started this, and he's been doing it for 3 years, and he's the happiest man I know, because that's what he needed to do.
Yeah, and that's what that congruency stuff is all about, right?
Yes, it is. Congruency is about aligning who you are with what you do and how you do it, because it matters.
Yeah, and even why you do it, like you did with him. That's so cool. I love that.
Yeah, it was a very interesting process to watch.
Yeah.
And we can switch to the next slide, because asking for help or realizing when we need help is an act of courage.
Yeah, let's do that. Real quick, I want to ask you, you mentioned the acronym of the ABA. It's the behavior stuff?
Yes.
Tell us the definition of that and a little bit about what you do, because my background's special ed, so I am somewhat familiar because of working with kids with autism, but tell us real quick about that piece of your life.
Well, that was a gift from life, honestly. For some circumstances out of my control, I needed a job. And one thing that I know I need is to have meaningful jobs. Yeah. If I have been an entrepreneur. I was first a freelance and now an entrepreneur, and I haven't worked for somebody else in forever. I don't know, probably 15 years or a little bit more. Yeah. So getting a job was a big step for me. It meant a lot. And I wanted to find something that met that need of being meaningful, of really helping people. So I got to this agency that works with children in the spectrum and applies ABA therapy. What that means is that, coming from the behavioral theory, that it summarizes, as I said, all our behaviors, including communication, have the purpose to access or to evade. So you start working with, I feel it's with everybody. It's not only with people in the spectrum. It is found to be very effective and very helpful to help them acquire the skills they need. But what I found is that we can apply it to everybody, and just, it's not necessarily, ABA therapists and ABA specialists are amazing at observing behavior and decoding exactly what is telling them.
Yeah.
I don't have that degree of specialization, of course, but I made a point on taking my training a little bit further and, train a little bit more, enough to help my clients just to ask themselves, what am I trying to do with this behavior? Like, am I trying, I don't know, I want to use another example, because we talked about the dishes, we talked about my client. Let's say that that you need to have a conversation with somebody. Like, there is a situation that cannot go on in a relationship. It's family, your partner, your friends.
Yeah.
And every time you see this person, you start screaming at them. You don't know why, but you get like super angry at them, and anything is an excuse to start up a fight.
Wow.
So that's a behavior. That's communication. That's behavior. And you can ask yourself, okay, this is a pattern. Obviously, it happens every single time I meet this person. Let's say it's a close friend. So every time I see this friend, I get there, we have 5 minutes of nice conversation, and then she says something that really irritates me, and I'm just like, it's impossible to talk to you, and I leave the place. So when you kind of bring the perspective, okay, I'm doing this. This is a behavior. This is not me. This is my behavior. It's outside. That's important, because you don't want to judge yourself. You want to see and understand that behavior and the emotions it has involved, because it will tell you things about yourself. Mm-hmm. So if I leave every time that I'm with this person, I'm just trying to evade that conversation.
Right.
Like, I don't want to have that conversation. And but it conflicts with my need of working out the situation. So that's where I work with my clients to find a way that feels easier,
right,
to empower them in that conversation, for example, and just to help them to see themselves with love and compassion. We are judged all the time by our community, by our society, by our culture.
Right.
I feel that this world needs a lot of love. Mm-hmm. And the first step of true sustainable love is to really love yourself in a way that respects you as the amazing, magical individual that you are, that sees the value that you bring to the world. And most people I know wouldn't speak to others the way they speak to themselves.
True that, absolutely. And I just love the work that you do there. And can you tell us what the ABA stands for? Is it
Applied Behavior Analysis?
Applied Behavior Analysis, ABA. Yeah, cool. It was very helpful at times for certain clients.
Yes, absolutely. If you know anybody in the spectrum, please research this, because results are amazing and it is very empowering.
Nice. And really cool that you have that background in with your congruency coaching approach. So that's very helpful for people who work with you too. Okay, so be courageous, find your truth, and tell us that little section there.
Well, courage, the courage to see yourself as you are, naked from what you should or what you're supposed, or, like outside of that scripted box, outside of that pattern, who you are. So find your truth. I honestly believe it is a process that takes us all our lives. I do not promise in any way that you like, yes, we'll find your truth in 12 weeks, because I don't think that happens. But what you learn is how to get deeper into that truth, how to get closer to what really vibrates. And I do believe that throughout our lives, we collect moments of absolute joy and absolute perfection. And acknowledging those moments is very helpful, because then you can come back to them.
Yeah.
Right? You can remind yourself that that is possible and that you know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So it needs courage. First of all, because it involves seeing yourself maybe in a way that you hadn't seen before. Mm-hmm. It involves seeing your shadow and your light. Like, you will see things that you maybe don't like a lot. And it also involves, in many cases, asking for help. This example I use with my client, maybe you're procrastination because you feel overwhelmed with the responsibility of making all the decisions in your home, in your family. When I work with my moms, I offer self-care programs for moms, and we get here like, I feel so overwhelmed. I feel that I'm managing everybody's life, that I just don't want to do anything. I just want to walk out of the door with my purse and not come back, right?
With my purse. That's so funny. Only a woman would get that joke.
Absolutely. Like, I'm taking my purse. I'm checking out Alaska, right? So
funny when you go through a woman's purse and see what's really in there. That's so hysterical. I know my life is in order if my purse is clean. You know,
absolutely.
My life is in order, and my life is like ultimately in order. My nails might be polished. My toenails are right now. That's pretty big for me.
Oh, I love polished toenails. Yeah.
I know, right? Not a big deal to me. But if I'm that bored, they might have something on them. I love it. So when you do find your truth, though, then it's about treasuring it. Even as you're finding the pieces of it, it's treasuring those pieces and filling up that treasure box of you, really, right?
Yes. Of you, who you are right now and who you have been.
Yeah.
And who you will become, because change is inevitable. You know, this truth is not set on stone.
Right.
I don't see this truth like this. I see this truth as, I don't know, what is coming to my mind is the Hobbit, that scene with the dragon and this huge treasure. And, you know, one of the hobbits just taking little things out of that treasure. That looks more like the truth I'm referring. Like, yes. You will find pieces of it, as you said, throughout your life. And what I mean with treasuring it is because of that love that you gain when you connect with yourself, because of that courage that being honest with yourself gives us, you can take that small piece and say, okay, my truth is that I don't like to eat yogurt. It can be something as simple as that. But that is the first step to set your boundaries. So when you treasure your truth, when you treasure these little pieces that you know about yourself, that you learn about yourself. And also, you know, there's, I'm going to make a parenthesis here, because this process is also about trying on roles or trying on ways to be yourself. We don't know. Like, I feel that's something very helpful, to assume that you might not know what's going on, and you don't need to, because what will enrich you will be the process of discovering it. Because if you have something set on your mind, you will probably not see other things that come throughout the process.
Yeah, for sure. So, and then treasure the truth of others. Wow, that one is so important. You know, it's like, it's just that place of honoring, realizing we are all connected, So when you're honoring others, you're honoring yourself.
Absolutely. And once you honor yourself, you just can't help but honor others.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the beautiful piece about that. Okay, so provide yourself with love. How do you do that, Tanya? And how do you suggest that your clients do that?
Well, when we were talking about the slides, you and I got into conversation about what's the difference between loving yourself and providing yourself with love. Mm. And I feel this is an important nuance. We have talked about loving yourself, establishing this loving, compassionate, respectful relationship with yourself. But now, love as the energy of life, love as a force that keeps you going, not romantic love, sometimes not even family love. It's just love in a way that empowers you to effect change and to create this life that it's yours. Mm-hmm. It is, I see it like a context. There's an ecology for your well-being. Your well-being will not sustain itself just because. It's like, have you seen that picture of the little yellow daisy growing up in the cracks of, I don't know, New York City, right?
Yeah.
So that's well-being. This flower has been capable of finding life and love in the cracks of the pavement. We are amazing in a way that humans are so resilient that we will be able to cope with almost anything, and we will grow, but growing is not the same thing as thriving. What would happen if you take that flower and you plant it in this beautiful field? It might turn into a huge sunflower. It might turn into a bush. It might, just expand itself to cover the field with beauty.
Right.
So that's what I mean when we need to provide ourselves with love. So we find that we are being procrastinating something. We connect with ourselves to see, okay, what is the reason behind this? What need is unattended and it's just keeping me distracted?
Right.
We're honest enough, we're courageous enough to see that. And then we need to ask ourselves, how can I solve this need? And how can I make sure it's tended continuously? So we need to create that ecology. One way to create that ecology is to set boundaries and defend them. I like to see boundaries. Simon Sinek has a wonderful idea about this, and he says that boundaries are doors.
Nice.
I love that. That's the way that makes more sense to me, because some people, when they hear about setting boundaries, it feels like, setting walls around you. But that will not bring you closer to your truth or to others' truth. That will just shut you off and disconnect you.
For sure.
So, right? So seeing boundary as a door, because it's so, and you mentioned this, also you have mentioned this in other conversations, boundaries already there. You just need to name them.
Right. It's noticing them, because people will say, find your boundaries, and yeah, I like the word noticing more than find them, because they're not lost, they're there. Just let anything test you and bam, you'll find them real fast. So maybe it's the same wording, and I love the idea of noticing boundaries.
Yeah. And you know what, when I have some of the ways that I have noticed my own boundaries is I get something here. Like somebody asks me to do something, or somebody approaches me in a certain way, and I immediately get something here in my chest, like telling me, no, this is not the way you want it to happen.
Right.
So you can name that. You can say, okay, here's my door. If you want, let's come back to the example of these friends who are in conflict.
Right.
So once this person has found out that what she's really doing is just avoiding that conversation, she needs to name what is going on. And she finds that she needs her friend to be more respectful to her. Not because our self-respect depends on others, but because she needs to get that respect acknowledged by her friend. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's her boundary. She sets a door, and this door looks like, when you talk to me, please talk to me as you would talk to yourself, for example. And now she needs to communicate that boundary, because that's the thing. I don't feel we need to go out in the world like telling everybody about our boundaries. But if we have important, close, meaningful relationships, it is our responsibility to communicate those boundaries. Right? Like, I don't like you to call me like that. Perfect. You communicated a boundary. Like, yeah. So you communicate this boundary and you defend it. You make sure that it is there. Now, we mentioned boundaries as doors. What that means to me is that it's not set on stone. It's not a wall. It can be open. You can work that boundary out, because it will probably change also. But the way is that it needs to be in agreement.
Yeah.
It's like consent.
Yeah,
you know?
Like, don't barge in my door. Like, ask permission.
Exactly. Knock nicely. Absolutely. Knock nicely, right? I'll knock, knock, who's there? And I'll know if I want to let you come in or not.
Yeah, right?
Right?
So very much a part of our well-being. And is there anything more you wanted to quick say on well-being?
Well, what does well-being means? Whatever you say, like, that is a definition that each of us needs to construct. Mm-hmm. And it's a definition that we need to know, and we need to know that it will be changing throughout our lives.
Right.
So that's important to check in with yourself every now and then.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool.
And,
okay. Were you done?
Yeah. Just part of explore your interests.
Yeah, that's
it's like the experimentation part of it. When we are noticing a need and we're finding a way to address it, we might not get it the first time, but that's okay. We just need to know that there's exploration involved and that we can finally get to what was there to be met.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right. So do what your heart is telling you. Be courageous. Provide yourself with love. So how would you sum all that up?
Procrastination is not a problem. It is a sign that you have unmet needs. Please find a way to connect with your heart, with who you are. Find the way to have courage and provide yourself with that you're needing, with that well-being that you're needing, and create it in a way that is sustainable for you throughout the time. Mm-hmm. That's how I would summarize it.
Yeah, thank you so much. And you have a really great gift offer too, that you're offering like discover why you procrastinate type coaching, congruency coaching session. That's so generous of you. Thank you very much for that. And there's the link, and that's also, you know, in the viewers' emails, so all they have to do is click it from the email. You want to say a little bit about what might go on for them in those 15 minutes with you?
Yes. Well, if you're procrastinating, if you notice that you are procrastinating in a way that it's affecting your life, it's not providing you with well-being, we will chat about you. I will teach you a very short exercise on how you can start connecting with yourself. Cool. And we will talk about your findings.
Mm-hmm. What would you say the outcome of somebody doing that with you would be? The
outcome will be you have a tool, you know what to do when you're procrastinating.
Nice.
you will find a need. It's not necessarily super exactly, but you will have information and you will have one action step to work it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you again. So just go back to the email, click the link, and I'll take you right to Tania's scheduler. Thanks again, Tania. I really appreciate this. This was fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you so much for organizing, and wishing love and well-being for everybody.
Yay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.